Hey kids, we are back with episode 2 of Micro Brushless Quad World. And today what we're going to do is talk about motors and props at the same time. Trying to make this too long. Let's start out, and one thing I do want to note here, and I've had a really good response that people want to know this stuff, so awesome, that's why I'm doing it. I already know the stuff I know, but if it can help you guys out, then rock and roll. But this is pretty biased. I can't show you every prop, I can't show you every motor, I can't show you every frame. I can only show you what I've done. So, that being said, let's start off with some brushless motor ins and outs, things you may or may not know. This is an 1104 Racer Star motor, okay? It's an 1104 6500 kV dud. Got burned up or whatever the fuck happened to it, I do not know. So, those numbers, 1104, mean a couple of things. It's your stator size, in case you guys don't know that. So it's 11 millimeters in diameter, and it's 4 millimeters high. That's your stator size. Now, let me see if I've got a busted up one. JJ's always got busted up shit. There's one. Rock and roll. Okay? Not really busted up, but it's just got the bell off. Looks like, yeah, it's busted up. Alright. Here's what looks like an 1104 stator. Trusty caliper. So let's go 11. Haha, I was right. I knew I was right. And give or take, it's kind of hard to... I'm sorry, yeah. This is 1105. My bad. No. Very difficult to measure. Anyway, you get the idea. So the 11 is your diameter, and the 05, 04, 03 is your height, okay? These are... You know, I'm not going to get into motor physics here, but basically you've got a bunch of laminated windings going around magnets and blah, 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 blah. The reason that these are more susceptible to heat is because that is actually a varnish. I've been into many motor factories, real larger motors, not these, where I've seen winding machines. I've seen this whole process and how it's made. I programmed robots that did the TIG welds on the stators and things like that. But the thing you got to keep into consideration with heat, this is why heat, meaning you're trying to spin too much prop on too small of a motor, it overheats and the motor goes to shit. The reason being is that varnish will heat up, become almost a liquid state, expand, and come back down. And it keeps doing this, okay? Then eventually, if you get a crack in one of those, bam, it's going to short out a crack in one of these windings, because these are all, you know, this is one wire. Or 3 wires technically, okay? And if that shorts out to phase 2, bam, your motor starts twitching and doing all sorts of bad shit. That's why heat is a killer with these smaller motors. So, these motors, just like the ones on your real quads or your bigger quads, are 3-phase AC. So, your electronic speed control is taking DC current from your battery, and then it's transferring it into 3-phase, okay? And those 3-phase, that's why you can reverse the direction on one of these things just by flipping 2 of the leads around. But like I said, this isn't motor theory. This is just to give you guys an idea of how these little guys work. You got a bearing in the top, and usually a bearing in the bottom. This is an old DYS that got kind of fucked up. Let me see if I can get that bearing out. There we go. Look at that shit. This is what your bearing looks like. And for any of you that are interested, what the hell, right? Zero that piggy out. This bearing's OD, or outer diameter, is 4 mil on the nose, and its height is 2 mil on the nose. Bam. And don't ask me what that frickin', well, that's the shaft diameter, so what is that, 1.2 or something, 1.5? Anyway, doesn't matter. That's what your bearings look like. So now that you understand a little bit of that, that's why windings are very susceptible to heat. Now, with a bigger motor, like an 1104, you know, something you're using on a real bird, a big quad, heat isn't as detrimental. It is, but in higher scale, okay? And the reason being is those windings have more mass to dissipate the heat, and they don't poop out quite as easily. They will still overheat and burn up, though, so you gotta be careful. I've never done one. Well, yeah, I have. That's a lie. Okay, so we're gonna get out 3 basic types of motors. We're going to get out, oh shit, an 1104. I'll try not to make the mistake that I made the other day saying, this is 110, blah, blah, blah. All right, we're going to pretend this black one's an 1105 because honestly my 1105s are coming in and they're not in yet. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I put the old mat down because I want to write some stuff down. So we're going to take our 1103, 10,000 kV. We're going to put them here. Our 1104, Racer Star Burnout, going to put him right there. And we're going to pretend that's an 1105. You know, it's the same principle, only, you know, it would be a little bit higher. Now, something else real quick that I forgot to show you guys is 1103, 1104, and 1105s all have the same basis, meaning they'll all fit the same frame. So if you measure from hole to hole on these, and I think that was one of the, give or take 10 mil, 9.5 mil, give or take. But if I measure this little guy, it's going to be the same. What did I say, 9.5? Yep, look at that, bam, 9.5. So one of the things that's confusing when you're first starting out and you're learning how to build these things is what fits what frame. Well, 1103, 1104, and 1105 all have the same bolt pattern on the bottom. So this is an 1103, 1104, and 1105, pretending, okay? Quotes. Move my drink. All right. So here's how I want you to, we're going to break this down into two elements. One, power and size. Two, propping, okay? And this is a general rule of thumb. You really, if you want to get into this type of shit, you need to look at all these Excel spreadsheets that people put online. If you're running this current and this amperage with these ESCs and this prop and this, that, and whatever, you got to do this type of motor. Yeah, let's break it down so it's easier to understand so you guys don't have to do so much fucking research. 1103 is good for 1 to 2S. 1104 is good for 2 to 3S. And 1105 is good for 3 to 4S, respectively. Okay? Now, think of it that way. That's not necessarily golden rule true, okay? But it is right. If you put a 3S on 1103, something you need to consider, people will say, oh yeah, you know, I run 3S on my 1103s all the time. The problem is, remember that heating and contracting thing I was telling you about? The hotter they get, it's what we call duty cycle. Everything that's electronic that takes current, especially, it has a specified duty cycle, at least in the industrial world, okay? So yes, this thing might be able to run a 3S, but an ADC 3S on this little guy, you better only be popping it once in a blue moon. If you're full throttling that thing, the duty cycle is only 10% or something like that. Everything degrades the higher the value. So this is my rule of thumb. It just is. No matter what prop I have on it, blah, 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 I don't put a 4S on 1104. You can run this one. I think you can run 1105 on 2S. It's going to suck it down so fucking fast, it ain't going to be worth doing. 1 to 2S, I've never run in my life a 1S micro brushless. So I'm assuming that's correct if you have the right ESC. But definitely, I run the two birds I have with 1103s. I only run 2S. 1104 will go 2 to 3 depending on the prop, and 1105 3 to 4 depending on the prop. Okay, but I run. Let's take this guy here for example. My lizard bill. This is my custom. This custom. All my birds are custom, but I actually do run 2-inch 4-bladed props with 1104 motors on a 3S. I do it all the time. It gets a little warm, but I also run full throttle all the fucking time. So, I mean, a lot of the time anyway. So my motors probably get warmer. But if I put a 2S on this guy, it runs beautiful, nice and smooth, and it comes down nice and cool, and I've got no problems, okay? So that's really the gist of how I think of these motors. If it's that one, it's those. If it's that one, it's those. If it's that one, it's those. Now, that is not relative. People are shaking their heads thinking, you haven't talked about KV, and you haven't talked about props, you haven't talked about this, that, and whatever. Bam, get to that. KV is something to take into consideration. Now, if you're running an 1103 that's extremely small KV, this is 10,000. Bam, sorry, smoking hot wife interruption. So, 10,000 kV. kV, think of it as RPM per volt, okay? So if you have a 1 volt battery and you put a 10,000 kV motor on there, it's going to run 10,000 RPM unpropped. That's something to remember. Which I don't recommend you do. Never floor a motor without a load. That's bad voodoo. Bad things will happen. But anyway, that's how they rate them. So in theory, if I took a 1-volt battery, put it on a 10,000 kV motor, and ran it full throttle, I'd get 10,000 RPM unpropped. So that's something to think about. 10,000 RPM on a 3S. Do the math on that. Okay, balanced out, 3.3, 9.9, 9.9, let's run it up to 10 volts, which would be a dead battery. 10 times 10 is 100,000 RPM. Yeah, that ain't no good. So that's something to consider. I think a really happy medium for me is 1104s, 6500 to 7500 is where I sit, because I only run 2 and 3S, pretty much. I don't have 4S micros, and I don't run 1S. So that's kind of my happy spot when I do builds. The build that we have coming up is going to be an 1105 motor, and that will be 4S friendly. These are not 4S friendly the way I prop them and the way they have their KV. If you want to just keep it safe, think of this rule, okay? If you even if you over prop this, but you're only running a 2S on it, you're going to be okay. You will. Same thing with this. If you run a 3S with a, where's my gem fans? With a gem fan 4-bladed 2-inch prop, you're going to be okay. It might warm up, but that's really about as big a prop as you're going to get on there. Same thing with, like with 1103s and 1104s. Let's just put some proppies out here. Bam. Where's my, and put this one out here. Okay. Now, this is where it gets a little fidgety, and this is, I think, what really stops a lot of people. They get concerned of what props should I use and what motors and all this other stuff. If I'm running a 2S 1103 motor, I will either run a 1935 3-bladed prop, or, believe it or not, I have cut 2 props off of a 4-blade and made them stupid fucking fast. Because think about it, the most efficient prop on earth is a 1-bladed prop. But you have to counterbalance the other side. Do your physics, it's true. Now, the next efficient is 2-blade. Every time you add a blade, you get less efficiency. But you get other things. There's always cause and effect to everything. More blades give you more float, they give you a little bit more power, whereas less blades give you more speed, but less punch, little things like that. But so I have been known to make 2-bladed props for these, and they fly like a dog on fire. They're stupid fast. This is my go-to prop. I can put this prop, a 1935, and this one's a King Kong, 1935 on a 2S 1103 or a 3S 1104 all fucking day long, and I have no problem, okay? If I'm going to run these 4 blades, I usually do run them on 2S 1104. I never run this on this, ever, period. End of story, I just don't. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot of, this blade with a 2S is a little bit slower than this blade on a 3S, obviously. So, yeah, experiment a little bit, but that's what I do with those. But with my 1104, let's take a Fly Egg 130, okay? I'm running 1104s on this, DYS, but if I'm running my big 3-inch props, I will run it on a 2S. I just do. I can and have run it on a 3S, but that is a lot of prop to be spinning on 7,500 kV motors with a 3S. Can you do it? You can. And we'll get into ESCs later. That's the next video. But honestly, that King Kong, the Fly Egg 130 with these props on it with a 7,500 kV motor on a 2S is badass. The thing flies like a fucking 220. I love it. The 1105s, same principle. I might build a 4S battery. This is going to be our build. I told you guys we're going to do a build, and I'm going to do a separate video that's going to tell you guys. I'll talk about that later. But anyway, we're going to use 1105 motors on that with 3-inch props, and I can safely, easily run 3-inch blades on that with a 3S. That thing is going to be fucking smoking badass. So that is basically the basic short bus version of these motors, okay? That's how I look at it. 1 to 2S, 2 to 3S, 3 to 4S. A lot of guys out there will say, well, you can run that with that and that. And that's true, you can. I do it. I have run 3S on these. Not very fucking long, though. I have high power 3Ss, like 120C, 100C, and I learned my lesson. I don't even do builds with 1103s anymore. I've got 2 birds left with them, and when those are gone, they're gone. I'm done. 1104 and 1105s are my thing. Now, something I want you guys to consider. I've been talking a lot about to people ever since I did the first video of this about what should I buy, what should I get, what should I do, and something I want you to think about. And this is how I do it, because I had a couple guys I was talking to today. He goes, "Why don't you? Would you consider using the 1400 motors on that build instead of the 1105s? Would you consider this? Would you consider that?" The reason I stay in this realm right here, and I only run these 3 props, honest to God, only 3 props I run on micros. The reason I do that, and I build within this realm, I very rarely venture out, because I don't want 8 million kinds of fucking batteries. If I do a 1405 motor, I'm no longer running a 550 or a 450 milliamp 3S. I'm now running a 1000 milliamp 3S. I don't have any 1000 milliamp 3Ss. I don't want any 1000. I got 2 drawers full of frickin' lipos. This drawer over here is full of big ones. This drawer is full of micros. I want to build within the scope that I fly. Now, would I love a quad with 1405s on it? I would love it. I think it'd probably be an awesome medium size. It's not a micro, but it's not a macro. It's in the middle. I would probably love it, but I don't want to have to stock different blades, stock different batteries, stock this, stock that. I want to stay within my high-end 2S batteries and my high-end 3S batteries, and I'll probably grab a couple 4s. I'll probably make them, to be honest. And that's the realm I want to stay in, because that's all the gear I've got. I've got tons of freaking gear for all this stuff. And I suggest you kind of build that way, unless you want to end up with just gazillions of parts for all sorts of shit. That's just my advice anyway. So that's why our build that's coming up is going to be an 1105. The next thing I want to talk about with these motors, and then I'm pretty much going to call it good, because you can only talk about these so long. When you get an open belled motor, which usually is only 1103s. Don't quote me on that. I'm sure there's others, but you want to make sure these are nice because you can see how far that screw's going up. Okay. If you've got something that a closed bell motor like this, then that's bad, because it's very difficult to see how far that screw is going up. And depending on your frame, if you've got a thin little piece of crap frame like this guy, or let's see, who's really thick? Who's thick? Who's thick? We know it's not Bardwell. Shit, it's in the house actually, but let's just say you got a 2.5, 3 inch or 3 mil. You're gonna need longer screws. Be careful. Don't judge. Don't take it for granted that the screws that came with your motor to mount it are gonna be perfect, because they're not. They might be, but don't take it for granted, because they don't know what kind of frame you're putting it on. If you're putting it on a 1.5 mil frame and they give you 3 mil freaking screws, bad things are going to happen. So when in doubt, take a cutter, not these, take a bigger cutter, you know, something like this, even bigger if you got it. When in doubt, put those screws through the frame, measure up. They only have to go in the motor about 1.5 mil, and then just cut them fuckers off. Cut them to length. I'd rather have a bunch of long ones I can cut down than a bunch of short ones I can't use. Bam, good math, okay? So be very, very, very careful about that. The other thing to be careful of too is make sure your prop screws don't go too far down. So gently put in your prop screws and then gently try to rotate. If it feels like it's stuck, back them out, cut them down, kids, because you can short through the top just as easy as you can short through the bottom. Please, please, please. I've done it. I've done it through the top more than I've done through the bottom, because I'm not used to screws in the top. I'm used to this math, because even big birds, you know, you take a big bird and you stick motors up too far, the same thing happens, or I'm sorry, bolts up too far, same thing happens, but you got to be careful going down. The other thing to consider, and a lot of guys, I guess the Fly Egg was very, very popular, you know, the ready to fly one. The Fly Egg has these type of motors, okay, which are I call them canned or can motors. These are unvented. Yeah, they got little tiny holes at the top there, but these, I don't love them, because unvented means they get hot. I always try to go with open bells, if at all possible. Most 1104s don't have open bells, but this is an open cavity, okay? This is an open cavity, and that Crappy Hawk and the Fly, and I'm not saying the Fly Egg motors are bad. They might be great, guys, but it's something to consider with the heat. That's all I'm saying, okay? So be a little bit cognitive of that. Hang on, need a drink. All right, I think that's about it. I'm sure I've missed some things, whatever, but that's a good beginner rundown for how to pick a motor. If you want to be safe, 1104, any RPM with that, well, any RPM 6,000 and up with this. It depends on how you want to fly. My buddy Equad, he wants an indoor / outdoor flyer that's somewhat timid. He doesn't want it to be a cock rocket. So I say, okay, put on 1104 6000 kV motors with these blades, and it's going to be nice and docile. You take a 7500 kV with these props, or even these props, well, these are still going to be faster. And it's going to be like a dog on fire with a 3S. But if he runs it with a 6000, this prop, and a 2S, it's going to be a nice little house putter. But then he can take it outside and change the battery, change props, bam, whatever he wants to do. So take that into consideration. 1104 is my safe motor. I like them. They're pretty robust. You don't need a hell of a ton of current to run them. You can run these two styles. There's multiple styles of props, guys, but these are my main props. You can run multiple styles on them. They seem to be fairly robust. I do recommend putting bumpers on. Like if you guys buy a fly egg kit, the fly egg kit, like if you just buy the frame, okay? The frame actually comes with 4 of these, comes with rubber bands, comes with all these spare parts. I did a review on one. I do recommend you put these on the front. And I do it with not all of my birds, but a lot of them. If you look at this fly egg, I got bumpers on the front, not on the back. If you look at this fly egg, I got bumpers on the front, not on the back. Because it's just extra weight that you don't need in the back, because you usually don't crash backwards. I mean, yeah, you can do a flip and it's possible. Even my 130, I got bumpers in the front. But then I've got my Nightmare 80, doesn't have any bumpers. This one doesn't have any bumpers, and that's just because I was too lazy to put them on. But if you only put 2 on the front, it gives you 2 more for another build. Bam, cool. I do suggest use that. These, and it's not because you might be a bad pilot. I'm a bad pilot. I mean, that's cool. It's the fact that these motors are a fuck ton more fragile than a 2205 that we use on the big birds or something like that, especially these guys. So I'd much rather take the extra half a gram of weight per one of these and save my motor than lose my $10 DYS motor, my $10 iPower motor, whatever you're running, or Emax. So I think that's good math. I really do. I don't run big bumpers on any of my big birds, and I run some expensive ass motors, but they're not as fragile. So that's something to consider as well. The build that is coming up, and that's pretty much enough of that. If you guys have any questions or I missed anything, please let me know, and I will be glad to help you out. The build that we're going to be doing is going to be a fly egg 130 or a pod 110 frame. I ordered both. And I also ordered a 1000 TVL camera with the VTX, but I also ordered the Runcam Micro Swift with the VTX. And it's got 25 amp ESC with F4 Omnibus with OSD. It's going to be a badass bird with 1105 motors. But I'm going to do a whole separate video on that build before I do the build. And it's going to be like a computer video, and I'm going to put the links to all the parts I'm getting, but there's 2 versions you can build. You can build the one with the, like my flag, that's going to have the normal 1000 TVL camera in there and whatever else, or you can have the option of building the one with the Runcam if you want. Now, some of you might be thinking, if you know enough about this stuff, that the Runcam Swift will not fit in this buggy. Okay, so we might try to do a mod. I don't know if my mod will work actually, because it looks like the frame's not going to be wide enough. So we might have to go with this camera. We'll see. I've got 2 different frames coming. I'm going to see which one is the most groovy, but this is going to be kind of like option A, option B build. That is coming. And just to give you guys a teaser, have you ever seen a 220 millimeter fly egg? Huh. That's just a teaser. Keep the shiny side up, kids. Hope this helps, and please let me know if you have any questions. Take care. Bye.